So I waited a little while to respond to this event that has shockwaved across the world, to respond to the reactions to this event. Because in the reactions to the event, you see the intentions of the event. And just like everything else that's surrounding the mainstream media, Hollywood, circus, the intention behind something like this is to control the narrative. And the narrative, again, that is being pushed, that has been pushed for hundreds of years, is once again, here goes black people being violent again. Regardless of what Will Smith was intending, that's what the world is seeing. And that's what the mainstream media wants the world to see. Because in that action, the system is justified for treating us the way that it has and still is treating us. It's a way to dismiss the events that led up to the biggest problems that we're dealing with, not only in this country, in the United States, but around the world. And to take the ownership off of the cancer and focus on the surface layer reactions to that cancer, the side effects, the emotion. Having people focus on the emotional body is the same as having people focus on fear. It has the same effect on people. And to have an individual with that amount of power in that moment, receiving, as fake as that whole world is, think of the amount of power he could have capitalized on in that moment, having already been nominated for Ali and what Muhammad Ali was connected to, Malcolm X. What could he have said in his acceptance speech in reference to that? How much could he have revealed and exposed in that moment? The opportunity that was missed, I feel, on purpose, because the system is aware of how much power these individuals have, how much influence these individuals have. When you're dealing with fake people on a stage, it can't help but be staged, no matter how real it is. So the discussion of whether it's real or fake doesn't matter. What matters is what actually happened. What actually happened, and the biggest thing that happened, is that yet again, another individual who had the opportunity to speak on something very important not only missed the opportunity, but took a step backwards in making the case for the system of mind control that has been attacking us through the system of racism and white supremacy for generations. Look at what Marlon Brando did when he got his Oscar for The Godfather. He sent an Apache spokeswoman up to speak about the injustices that are coming not only through Hollywood, but in the everyday reality. He used that time and that platform to speak on an issue to the world. And she got booed off that stage. What could have Will Smith spoken about? This is why, when you think about whether it was real or fake, it doesn't matter. Hold it up against the opportunity that he missed out on and the fakeness of the entire emotionally driven event, whether he intended it to be real or not. How fake it was in reference to what he could have done is the only thing that matters. But this obviously comes from if you're expecting anything from any of these individuals, which, if you're in your right mind, there should be no positive expectations from these people. At best, you're going to get controlled opposition. And this is what I was explaining to some friends of mine in reference to why this individual was used to do this. Because like I said, he had an opportunity. He had a power in that moment. And all that time was focused on what? Emotion. Defending himself. Downplaying and dismissing his childish actions, his psychologically disturbing actions, and putting on another role, triggering the emotional body, and missing out on a huge opportunity to speak to the world. What could a spoken word artist have said to the world if he or she had that opportunity? What could your everyday person living on the streets have said to the world if they had that opportunity? And what I'm saying is that why that opportunity was missed on purpose is because Will Smith, and I've mentioned this, I think maybe a couple years ago now, whenever he started his YouTube channel, Immediately when he started his YouTube channel, I said they were going to use him for something in the future. And that something was in reference to Hollywood losing its steam and needing to cross over into the social media YouTube world. Because in this day and age right now, YouTubers are actually more famous than Hollywood. Hollywood is not as big as it used to be. It's been overtaken by social media influencers and YouTubers. And Will Smith, when he came over to YouTube, he was pretty much the biggest Hollywood actor to get into that circle of YouTube creators, content creators. And just like everything else, the system needs to get into whatever is a threat to that system in order to take it over and bring it down. And they have to send these people out there like Will Smith, like Russell Brand, to get a hold on the grasp of reality. And they'll push them like they push them in Hollywood. Push the numbers up, push the traffic up. Look at what's going to happen when Will Smith releases his YouTube video, his response. Probably crying again. How much traffic is he going to get going into that? What do you think he's going to do when he starts being lightly attacked by his colleagues in Hollywood? He's going to have to talk to them. Probably start some bullshit nonprofit organization talking about violence and bullies or whatever the hell it is. Get into conversations with other actors. And that's your step into the YouTube community. Because somebody with the power like Will Smith, he's not gonna crash and burn. They're not going to throw him under the bus. He's too influential. He's too needed. He's like a Beyonce. They need him like they need her to maintain the dialogue, the narrative, to keep everything, the discussion surface layer, just as that event did. Like I said, he had the opportunity, like Marlon Brando did when he received his Oscar for The Godfather. He had the opportunity to speak on a much larger issue, but yet he had to defend himself and go into the victimized emotional body and now be pretty much a part of this humiliation ritual. And just like movies, those events are used to control. It's programming. That event is programming. His actions was programming. Another proving the system that he could have exposed, proving them right. We're emotional, violent creatures who are second-class citizens. That's the kind of shit that happens on the Source Awards, not the Oscars. How dare you? Watching those actions keeps people in their lower bodies. Physical, survival, fear, emotional bodies. This is what this system is based upon. The movies, cartoons, the music keeps you dumb. Keeping you dumb keeps you in survival mode. Keeping you emotional, reactive, keeps you in fear, survival mode. These movies, action movies, vampire movies, horror movies, all these movies keeps you scared in your emotional body in survival mode. And survival mode is the main mode to maintain control. Will Smith is one of the most powerful people in the world. Potentially. Look how powerless he is. He really is. Look at the hope that just gets buried underneath all the shit that we're dealing with on a regular basis. Because even when you're a millionaire, even when you have all that power, even when you're on the top of the world, on a platform to speak to the entire fucking world, you still go and do some stupid shit like that. There's no hope for anybody if he ends up submitting to his emotions and that bullshit and pulling a stunt like that. Staged or real doesn't matter. The effect is what matters. And like I said, the undertone is to maintain that survival, that fear, the emotional body. These are all on the same vibration. This artificial love, this egotistical love is the same thing. Maintains the foundation of why you need to be fearful, because you need to protect your family, because you need to do this, because you need to do that. This is why love is such a part, goes hand in hand with fear. This is why the New Age community is very much hand in hand with the dystopian apocalypse agenda that's out there, claiming to be different. No, it's the same. When you're in your emotional body, when you're in survival mode, when you're in fear, you're easily controlled. The superhero that Will Smith and all these Hollywood people are to these very shallow-minded people is a way to maintain that control dynamic. And like I said, these individuals are used to push these fake agendas, the mind controls of the scientism community, this idea of climate change, fear, starvation, nuclear war. These are all systems that maintain this emotion, this fear. If you're caught up in your emotional body, if you're caught up in survival, if you're caught up in fear, you're not going to allow yourself to empower yourself to actually do anything about your situation. If you're as emotional as Will Smith for something as weak and simple as that stupid ass joke that Chris Rock said, what makes you think you're going to be able to stand up to the system that has enslaved your people for hundreds of years? There's no hope for you. That's the intention of this event, this slap heard around the world. And in that Hollywood, in that mainstream media, in the education system, the actual tools that are used, just like these Hollywood celebrities, are things like technology, pushed out there to make it seem like it's for you, but it's actually a limitation. These tools that separate you from your internal power to externalize your power into the system, creating an artificial evolution process. And in that artificial evolution process, they're selling you the stories that are needed to maintain these systems that are placed in front of you to usher your consciousness into another system that's going to be based on more fear, more emotion, more survival, and more control over you. I saw the other day a sign in somebody's window that said, "Matter is the minimum." What could have Will Smith said at the Oscars if he were just to speak on Black Lives Matter in general, let alone the fakeness of Black Lives Matter, the shallow nature, the shallow approach of Black Lives Matter, the Democratic Party version of Black Lives Matter? No, none of that. If he had any sense to come from the perspectives of Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, what could he have exposed in reference to that movement in comparison to somebody driving down the street that says matter is the minimum? That's the truth. Just to matter is the bare minimum. Yet that's being pushed as the goal, as the peak, to control and to keep you emotional. Because there's no context, there's no power in mattering. You're the victim. You're inherently a victim. No, it's the bare minimum. And when you have people fighting back, you don't matter. When they're fighting against your very existing, your very mattering, and they have the authority to tell you who and what you are, you don't matter. This is how the system of so-called Black Lives Matter is actually more counterproductive than productive in any form. Will Smith is basically, in that action, in that event, is a Black Lives Matter compared to what somebody like Malcolm X or Muhammad Ali would have said on that stage. He's less than that. And like I said, this is on purpose. This is how these individuals are used. And just like Black Lives Matter, people who are speaking about these issues, like you have Jon Stewart. And I was just thinking the other day, Jon Stewart was on a roll when he had the Daily Show. He was going pretty hard, and his jokes were tapping into deep. And they knew that system was going to get, his comedy style was going to get more complex and eventually be somewhat of a threat in comparison to like all the other shit that was out there. So in order to divert from that threat, they took him off of there and replaced him with what seemed to be a progressive move to get a so-called black man on there so everybody can emotionally celebrate that bullshit. But what's he going to do? He's going to Obama that platform and actually take away from how far those perspectives could have gone, because he has to tippy toe. He can't be too black. He can't be too white. He has to play right in the middle. And that's exactly where that system wanted him to be. So this is how slick this system really is. People like Will Smith are examples of what that program did and what it's always doing. Maintaining the narrative. And how they do that when they talk about these discussions that someone like Will Smith could have spoken about. In order to control it, how they control it is to place your Black Lives Matter discussion next to the extreme opposite, which is like a prejudiced, bigoted asshole who's basically half a step away from the KKK. as if those are the two discussions. And why do they do that? Because what happens when you put a progressive next to a conservative, or basically a half a hair away from a KKK rep? They're going to butt heads and they're going to fight. They're going to become emotional. One's going to look bad. The other one's going to look good. And what do you get out of that? Nothing. Because you're having to deal with somebody who's so far away from reality. They're not even going to be able to touch bases with even the lowest level of movement. And if that's the case, then nothing will move. Because you're basing your movement off the lowest common denominator, the lowest perspective in this discussion. I just saw this recently on Jon Stewart's new show. So he's put out there to make it seem like he's part of something bigger. But when he has this discussion of the issues of dealing with racism, this is what he does. He gets two so-called white people on there talking about how bad racism is and what we need to do about it, and gives this prejudiced, bigoted asshole a platform. Why even give these people a platform? They're doing it on purpose to maintain the narrative underneath this idea of progressive movement. They don't need a platform. The discussion isn't with the most racist people and progressive white people. That's not what it is. Why aren't you talking to us? Why aren't you getting our perspectives? And if you were getting our perspectives, you wouldn't even be giving these assholes a platform to voice their bigotry and prejudice. And this goes into the foundation of why all white people are racist. That's not saying that all white people are prejudiced and bigoted, no. But all white people are racist because they can't help but protect this system. They can't help but support this system. A system that is designed to attack particular races of people, to hold a particular so-called race of people above other people. We cannot be racist. We can be prejudiced. We can be bigoted just the same. But there are not systems, educational systems, economic systems, entertainment systems, medical systems, Hollywood systems, sociological systems, child rearing systems, healthcare systems. There's not these systems that are designed specifically to attack so-called white people. No. But there are those systems that are designed specifically to attack us. This is what racism really is. So when you're in these discussions with people, you have to be more specific. Come from that perspective. Start the discussion there. You can't help but be racist as long as this racist system is alive. You might not be prejudiced. You might not be bigoted. But you are racist. Especially if you refer to yourself as white, which is the power name. It has no realistic existence. It only exists to maintain power and control. Yet every day, people are calling themselves white. Why? Because that's hiding the truth of this reality. And in that hiding of the truth, the system maintains its control and its growth. So you benefit, you support, you hold up this system of racism. You are a racist. And if you call yourself white, you are a card-carrying racist. Doesn't mean that you're prejudiced, doesn't mean that you're bigoted, but you are. You have to own that shit. If anything is to change, if anything is to move, the discussion needs to be started there. Something as simple as that, discussion missed completely. That topic missed by one of the most powerful people in this artificial ass world. The opportunity missed out. Taken by Marlon Brando back in the day, to some degree, by not even showing up to the Oscars and having an Apache woman speak in reference to a group of people who have been suppressed by this system. So, in closing, what's the worst part of this Will Smith, Chris Rock shit? The opportunity that was missed. The mind control that was expanded upon. And the validating of these racist systems who are just wallowing in the attention, the focus, and the money that's coming through from this event. How much money and resources is the system of racism and white supremacy going to benefit from Chris Rock having to speak about this shit now? His stand-up sets. Even Will Smith coming out and having to speak about what's happened. The system is going to double down, triple, quadruple down on something as stupid as this shit. And yet, once again, the bigger issues that we had the opportunity to address are once again missed. That's why I said I'm not saying it like, oh, we missed because Will Smith, no, I don't have those I don't have that hope for him. I don't have that. I know he's an actor. I know he's a part of that system. I'm not saying because he missed this opportunity that he was going to take that opportunity if that didn't happen. I'm not saying that, no, because I know what he's about. I know what system he's about. You think he's going to get up there and talk about Hollywood? You think he's going to get up there and talk about the boule? Is he going to talk about the foundations of racism and white supremacy? Is he going to expand upon his nomination from Muhammad Ali and what Muhammad Ali was talking about, where he was coming from, and his connection to Malcolm X and what Malcolm X was talking about? Hell no. I have no expectations or hope for him to go there. No. But is that a reality? In the slimmest of chances that he could have, to reference the power of what could have been. Now sit that next to the reality of what actually happened. The fear, the emotion, the weakness of that entire event. The validating of these ridiculous ass tropes that are put out there. And the hope that's lost for people who do have hope in people like him. The same people who have hope in somebody like Will Smith, you can call yourself progressive, liberal, whatever the hell it is, are still enslaved. But those people are like the people who had hope in Barack Obama. One step up from having hope about a politician is having hope about a Hollywood celebrity saying something about Black Lives Matter. And you're in the same boat. But that's a mass of people. And if he would have said something, look at the next step they would have taken. Because when these Hollywood actors take even the slightest little itty bit of a step towards something bigger, that shockwaves through the whole world, through these individuals of people who watch them, and they exponentially grow on that information thread. This is why Hollywood actors, musicians, athletes don't say anything, because they know they are powerful. They're maintained to be intellectually dense, totally dumb, paid millions of dollars to maintain their silence. Because if they were to share even the slightest shred, a little thread of information towards exposing this system or empowering you as a people, it would multiply. And this is why events like this happen. And people like this are used to maintain the control and the emotional body and the dismissing of entire movements of people.